All right, YouTube. This Detroit's HPTV coming back at you with another video on this Monday afternoon. Now, this is an interesting story I found coming out of Texas. It seems that along the Texas border, they're saying cartel members are planting explosive devices along the border and on the roadsides. Now, that sounds like something that you will hear about going on in maybe Iraq or somewhere in the Middle East. IUDs, explosive devices along the roads. That's an interesting development. And while this is going on simultaneously, ICE is making the raids in Chicago. The Chicago immigrants are hiding, the streets are empty in Mexican town, and there's a lot of panic with that. And ironically, immigrants in Texas are protesting and stopping traffic. While at the same time, you have Reverend Al Sharpton and his crew calling for boycotts of businesses. It's a lot of things going on and a lot of distractions, but some things are more serious than others. And I would like to ask people, why are the Democrats fighting so hard for illegal immigrants when they're not even fighting for the citizens that voted them in? What benefits are making them go against their constituency for immigrants who came into this country illegal? The Constitution doesn't even apply to them. The Constitution is applied for American citizens. Now, you have a lot of organizations that want to sympathize with the immigrants, and maybe they feel that that's a good thing. But in all actuality, you have to take your emotion out of it. They're here illegally, and they come with their own biases, their own crime, their own culture, and they're forced into communities that are already on the brink of collapse. See, in the Democratic Party, there is rampant communism and socialism, which goes against what you may call American dream. You know, they use words like socialism to fool you and uh, healthcare for all, but really, these people have adopted communist philosophy. They believe in worldwide revolution, which topples governments and destroys the inhabitants' culture and replace it with communism, a real dictatorship. See, Joe Biden, he went all the way out being what he accused Trump of. He was the one promoting censoring people's voices in violation of the First Amendment. He was the one that left the border swinging wide open. He was the one that let them pass a bill that actually banned the New Testament. And when you think about what happened with Hunter and what's going on in those wars that we were funding, you can tell that it's not democracy that they were pushing at the American people. It was communism. And I want you to ask yourself, why would the Mexican drug cartels, start putting explosive devices along the roadside in the border of America? Doesn't that seem like an act of war? And why would people like Brandon Johnson and other liberal government officials be siding with immigrants against the will of the American people, against their own constituents? What is motivating them to take this position? I have two interesting clips for you today. I want you to watch to the end. The first one is a report about the explosives coming out of Texas. Check this out. This is for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act, Education Commentary. Look what's going on while you were sleeping.
Urgent warning for people traveling back and forth from Mexico. Officials say cartel members near Brownsville have been placing explosives along the roadway. The News 4 I-Team's Jordan Elder found out who they're targeting and why officials in both countries are urging you to be careful.
Don't touch, don't move, don't manipulate. Residents in Tamaulipas, which is across the border from Brownsville, woke up to a concerning message. Cartels are placing explosives like these along the roads.
It's a shame that those are images I thought I left behind in the combat zone in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now I never in a million years really thought that we would be seeing that so close to home.
Patricia Driscoll grew up along the border, later serving as a military contractor.
People who are from there, we don't think of our Mexican border as a war zone, and we don't want to.
She says this message is alarming for people in border cities who cross back and forth every day.
People thinking, well, I'm just commuting to work. I'm just commuting to see my family. And now I have to worry about terrorist-like devices.
This is a 24-hour command center that we have here in the border on the U.S. side.
Security experts like Jorge Luis Cisneros are watching these threats closely. His company provides protection for companies in the U.S. and Mexico.
The cartels are fighting each other, but they're not looking to hurt Americans or any travelers that are foreigners.
Some are still worried this could be retaliation or a warning. President Trump signing an executive order this week designating drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
I'm not sure that it changes their behaviors.
Now think about that. Trump labels the cartels as terrorist organizations, and now all of a sudden you see them using explosive devices along the American border. And they want you to think that one thing doesn't have something to do with the other. To me, it seems like they create a big enough threat to slow down pushing people back across that border, create outrage, and it creates a distraction. And while you pay attention to that distraction, they continue with business as usual.
Anymore, but it is definitely time for them to see that the United States is not going to allow it to continue business as usual.
Long-term violence could have big impacts on the economies of both countries.
Millions and millions of dollars that are coming back and forth, and we have to protect the people that are involved or working there.
Congressman Tony Gonzalez represents several of those border cities. He tells us action is being taken to curtail cartel activity. Quote, Mexico needs to play a vital role in this, and current interactions between the United States and Mexico's government officials are rooted in improving safety and security initiatives across the board. So far, there haven't been major threats in cities like El Paso, Eagle Pass, or Del Rio, but as tensions rise, officials are urging travelers to be careful. Jordan Elder, News 4 San Antonio.
They need to take one person by one person and investigate it. And if they are bad, then take them out. But most of them, they are good people.
That was one of the people who took part in a protest on the South Side earlier this evening. They say they aren't happy with the Trump mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. This is what White House border czar Tom Homan told ABC News this morning.
It's not okay to violate laws of this country. We have millions of people standing in line, taking the test, doing their background investigation, paying the fees that want to come in the right way.
ICE agents are now able to enter churches and schools to arrest migrants who are suspected of being in the country illegally. That is causing uproar from some locals. News 4 San Antonio's Phil Sterling has more on how they're responding to the news.
The San Fernando Cathedral, like many other churches around the nation, is filled with people on a Sunday afternoon. But now they could see federal arrests take place in their place of worship. That's causing people like Alberto Riz to feel uneasy.
I thought the church was sacred,
Churches used to be considered sensitive areas during the Biden administration, but since President Trump retook the Oval Office, that has changed. Ruse says he understands the country needs to protect its borders, but also feels sorry for those looking for a better life.
It seems like every 4 years we have something that changes.
A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson released a statement saying criminals will no longer be able to use America's schools or churches to avoid arrest. They say the Trump administration won't tie law enforcement's hands and trusts them to use common sense. In an interview with ABC, border czar Tom Homan says this is nothing new.
Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or doctor's office or a medical campus. No other agencies have those standards.
Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar says his office has not yet been asked to participate in any sort of federal operations.
So I can tell you, I have no interest in going into jails or schools and churches to pursue people. Now, if a violent crime takes us to a church or a school, that's something different.
The Archdiocese of San Antonio shared a statement by the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops saying, quote, "The bishops of Texas will continue to work with governmental officials and other people of goodwill to implement policies that recognize the dignity of every person, prioritize family unity, and address the root cause of forced migration, while respecting the right and responsibility of our country to secure its borders, regulate immigration in an orderly process and maintain the rule of law, and keep its communities safe and peaceful." Reis says that he understands we're going through a change at this time, and it can be hard on all of us, but thinks there has to be a better way to secure the country. Reporting in the studio, Phil Sterling, News 4, San Antonio.
All right, thanks, Phil, for that information. Governor Greg Abbott is reacting to the deportations tonight. He posted a few hours ago on X saying, quote, "Texas Department of Public Safety troopers and special agents are deployed to assist President Trump's Homeland Security investigations in removing undocumented immigrants." He also said DPS operations will expand in the coming days. A U.S. Senate investigation of a migrant child's death in 2023 finds poor health care at border facilities. According to the Texas Tribune, the 8-year-old Panamanian girl had sickle cell anemia and heart disease when she crossed the border with her family near Brownsville in May 2023. The Tribune reports that contracted medical personnel at the Harlingen facility didn't call doctors, didn't log encounters with the girl, or write down her medical history. The report recommends CBP reduce the wait times people spend in custody, sharpen medical care oversight, and ensure it's meeting staffing needs. For continuing coverage of the crisis at the border, you can listen to our award-winning podcast, Immigration Crisis, The Fight for the Southern Border. It's available in both English and Spanish.
Hey there, you won't believe what we've got in store for you today. Introducing the SIG P365.
I don't understand it.
Now, interesting enough, what's going on at the border simultaneously, they want you to think these things are not related, but there were no explosive devices prior to Trump taking office and implementing the deportation. And you still have to ask yourself, why would the Democratic Party and the liberals on the left be so in support of immigrants who came over here illegally that they would divide the country? They will fight against the will of the people. Trump won the popular vote, not just the electoral vote, which means people voted for him to do exactly what it is he's doing. So the Democratic Party always has a way of thinking they are intellectually superior while they virtue signal. They think the rest of the country or the rest of the people don't know what they want in their own community and don't know what's best for them. So they're willing to go against the people, the presidency in their own country for an agenda. And you have to ask yourself, what's behind this agenda? What are they doing? What would make you side against your constituents and the people that put you in office, or people who came into the country illegally, a lot being criminals of all type of heinous crimes, but you are still willing to side with these people against your own people? It's traitorous and it's treasonous. And while we're talking about that, We have to look into Chicago. That's my next clip. And see what Brandon Johnson is up to. See, Brandon Johnson is what voting identity politics will get you. He's going against the very people that put him in office. It's criminal the way he's doing it in Chicago. So now the immigrants are being tipped off, being hid out, aided and abetted, so to speak, while ICE is still doing their raids. Let's check out this clip. It's for commentary educational purpose under the 1976 Copyright Act. Check this out.
Where we heading, Tom? Chicago, Illinois. We want to arrest public safety threats. We got all the government approach. We got U.S. Marshals, we got FBI, we got ATF, we got DEA, we got ICE, we got HSI, we got them all here. So the president's plan of all the government to attack illegal alien crime in this city. We're going to address it today, starting now. What's your name? Seda. Seda what? You have a personal last name? Sam. Seda Sam? Yes. Where are you from? Where are you?
I want you to listen to how this immigrant answers these questions that Tom Holman asks him. Listen carefully what he says.
Born or where I'm from?
Where are you born?
Thailand.
You been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
I've been in the system before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with?
Charged with?
Before?
I'm not gonna say that. I'm not talking about lawyer.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom says it.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
We got the Phil. We got Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, you know, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. He's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary.
Now you hear that. He's from Thailand, convicted of crimes against children, walking the streets, convicted of crimes against children, and he's from Thailand, just blending in with everybody else. And you wonder why so many children come up missing in your neighborhoods and in your communities.
City that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with. Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
Not really.
Not really? And they're...
Look how he answers that question. Not really. Could you imagine being asked, have you committed crimes against children, and say, not really? Out of all the things you're going to say, you're not going to say no. You're going to say, not really.
Been deported?
Nope.
Huh. Let's take them in process and lock them up.
Want to hand off your taxes? Get more from your tax expert and spend less.
Boy, I gotta tell you guys, the most entertaining show on television news today is the largest mass deportation operation in American history happening before our very eyes, okay? As liberal sanctuary cities across the country are being raided by ICE forces in order to deport the illegal immigrant criminals and their amigos that they are currently hiding with, okay? And I say hiding because according to CNN, the illegals have gone into hiding due to the fact that ICE has come into town.
ICE says that they are focusing on individuals who are public safety threats or national security threats, individuals with criminal backgrounds. We don't know anything about this man that was arrested yesterday here in the Chicago area, but we have asked ICE. Now let's step back to talk about what this has created in the Chicago area within the migrant and immigrant community. I can tell you that there is extreme panic from talking to organization leaders and context and sources here, they tell me that there is a sense of panic. And one of the examples that they used is an anecdote of a family from Venezuela, a migrant family who arrived here about 2 years ago. They have 2 young girls, elementary school aged, and they say that they have not left their homes since Trump took office, since he was inaugurated last week. So this is 2 elementary age girls who have not gone to school. Their parents have not gone to work. They are cooped up in their apartment. This organization learned about them, and so they have been dropping off groceries. And this organization tells me that the number of individuals who now...
See, they're dropping off groceries. That's what I mean by aiding and abetting. See, they're aiding and abetting the enemy. Because at this point, if you're in our communities illegally creating problems, we can't consider you a friend. So the sympathizers that are helping you are actually going against the will of their fellow citizens. See, this is the type of division that comes from the left. There is no pathway to unity with leftists.
Groceries because they're cooped up in their homes has grown. And so those are the types of stories that we're starting to hear about in the Chicago area as this focus on Chicago clamps down. So, John, we're going to continue monitoring the situation. I'm talking to a lot of contacts and sources to try to learn more about the arrests that happened here in Chicago yesterday, and also asking ICE about more information regarding these arrests.
Okay, towns like Chicago apparently have become ghost towns due to the fact that ICE has showed up and they have started the raids. Despite the woke mayor, Brandon Johnson, coming out here just a few days ago and talking about how he's going to push back against the Trump administration. He's going to do everything that he can to protect the illegal immigrants.
Sitting down for a one-on-one interview today talking about what the city is doing. And he made it clear that Chicago will not be intimidated by any threats of action from the Trump administration, even ones that could land him or the city in court. Mayor Brandon Johnson ready for wherever the battle may go over the rights of undocumented immigrants who are just minding their own business and going about their lives. What do you make of the fact that there have been no raids so far?
Well, first of all, let me just reaffirm our position as clearly as I possibly can, that we will always remain a welcoming and sanctuary space.
The mayor said he has no intelligence on when any raids by ICE agents could happen or how many people might be targeted, although sources have told ABC7 Homeland Security is going after dozens of people here in Chicago. The Trump DOJ seems to now have taken off the gloves by saying that they will pursue deportation targets in schools and churches. What is your response?
I find that to be quite frank with you, I find that to be unconscionable and reprehensible.
A Department of Justice memo this week said those who impede immigration enforcement could be subject to prosecution. Do you believe that you could be targeted because of Chicago's welcoming city ordinance?
Well, look, my main focus is protecting the residents and the people of the city of Chicago. The threats that are coming from
Brandon Johnson is definitely lying. If you watch Chicago Flips Red, Danny Seaton, the movement in Chicago, he is in direct opposition to the citizens that actually voted him in. See, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I believe he's made some type of deal through the Democratic Party and globalist sympathizers because he's risking it all for a cause he doesn't believe in. If he doesn't believe in helping his own people, what would make him so loving and caring to immigrants from somewhere else when he's going against the very people that voted him in? Ask yourself that. Is he sincere, or is this virtue signaling again to hide a deeper agenda?
This current administration are threats that we're not intimidated by.
U.S. attorneys' offices across the country have also been directed to review sanctuary laws and be prepared to challenge them in court if warranted. How is the city preparing to defend the welcoming city ordinance?
Yeah, so I've directed my corporate counsel to look at all of the executive orders that are coming from the current administration, and we will have a comprehensive response to each of those executive orders.
The mayor telling me the main objective at this moment is to ensure the safety of the people of Chicago. And Johnson says the city will stand up against what he called intimidation and fear-stoking coming from the Trump administration.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Okay, wouldn't be surprised in the next few days if the woke mayor, Brandon Johnson, comes out and starts boo-hoo-whining and crying racism over the ICE raids that are happening in Chicago. Okay, because Tom Homan warned Chicago. He warned the mainstream liberal media. He warned the Democrats. This is going to happen. Doesn't matter how much you kick, scream, and cry about it. Doesn't matter how much you try to get the Catholic Church involved and all these other people and want to boo-hoo whine and cry about schools and kids. Don't matter. It's happening, right? And again, he's made this very clear to the media, who seem to be very concerned about the well-being of the illegal immigrants.
About the aperture opening, the estimates of perhaps those who have been convicted or arrested in the past 700,000 to over 1 million. So after you do that, then you go after everybody who is there illegally.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay to violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge should leave.
While you are emphasizing that you go after national security threats, you have said no one's off the table. If you're in the country illegally, you better be looking over your shoulder. You should be afraid and start packing now. Is that what you're doing to get hotel workers out or people working on farms, that they'll be so scared they just leave?
Look, I think if you're in the country illegally, it's not okay. It's not okay.
You can see the Democratic liberal, they still the same old Democrats and Dixiecrats that they were back during slavery. They want to tell you, you're going to get rid of the people that's on the farms picking the vegetables for us and the people that's making the beds. Really what she's saying is you're going to get rid of our cheap labor. She said she might as well going to say that. So you plan to deport our cheap labor.
To violate laws of this country. We have millions of people standing in line, taking the test, doing their background investigation, paying the fees that want to come in the right way.
Let's talk about the arrests so far. Numbers released the first day were over 500, and there were reports that one was a suspected terrorist, others were gang members. Were all of the people who were arrested on day one, as far as you know, convicted criminals or those who had been arrested before?
No. And let me explain that. There are collateral arrests. Where do collateral arrests happen? Sanctuary cities. And this is important we understand that. Sanctuary cities lock us out of the jails. So instead of ICE being able to arrest the bad guy, the criminal alien, in the safety and security of the jail where the officer's safe, the alien's safe, and the public's safe, sanctuary cities release them back in the community, which endangers the community, putting the criminal alien back in the community. But when we find him, he's going to be with others, most likely. Many times they're with others. If they're in the country illegally, they're coming too.
But were these arrests all in sanctuary cities? It doesn't appear so on the first day.
The collaterals, many more. I don't have the exact breakdown, but again.
So the arrests in Massachusetts, in Chelsea, Massachusetts, which the governor said it's great to arrest the criminals who were convicted. But were there people taken there as well who were not convicted? Were they, as you say, collateral?
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? Despite the concern from the mainstream liberal media over the illegal immigrants panicking and living in fear, the Trump administration says, you know what? We need to ramp up our arrest, okay? There were about 1,000 arrests on Sunday, and President Trump has said, no, we actually need 1,200 to 1,500 arrests per day, right? It's not enough, okay? We have to deport more illegal immigrants, right? We really got to ramp this up. So it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And the boo-hoo-whining and crying is going to get worse because they seem to be more concerned about who's going to pick out cotton than the safety of the American people, okay? And the answer to the question of who's going to pick out cotton always is the liberals, right? The liberals, the people boo-hoo-whining and crying that are so concerned, they're the ones that are going to pick out cotton, okay? All of the federal workers, the DI hires that lost their jobs, they can pick out cotton. We have prisoners. They can pick out cotton. We have 7 million unemployed men in this country. They can pick out cotton, right? So I'm not worried about it. They can be worried about it, but I'm not worried about it. We have plenty of people that can pick out cotton. They might not want to, but they're going to have to. They're going to be forced to, especially we start rolling back on the entitlements, right? You start rolling back on the entitlements, okay? And the people stop living off the government and they got to go out there and actually work, then we'll have plenty of people to pick out cotton, okay? And if they don't want to do it and they want to commit crimes instead, okay, cool, we'll throw them in jail. And then we'll force them to pick out cotton, right? That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So
I'm going to stop there with Greg Foreman. Clearly, he's jesting when he uses the parallel of cotton. But where he's going with that is the Democrats and the liberals are fighting for cheap labor, not a decent wage or, somebody they want to treat fairly. They're looking for people that they can take advantage of for a certain amount of time until those people realize that they're being played too. But at that same time, they're in our communities, even with the cheap labor that they've become, they're still in competition for the resources in our communities. And they bring their own criminal element. Why would the liberals want that? Doesn't that seem like a recipe for more violence, more crime? You're bringing poor people and moving them into neighborhoods with other poor people, with cultural differences, different social norms, different backgrounds. Tell me what you think. What's the reason that the Democrats and the liberals on the left are pushing this agenda so hard that they're willing to go against the government and the will of the people? Ask yourself that. Well, this is Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. Support the channel, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, salute to all patriots. Keep your head on a swivel. Peace.